G'day guys, I'm Will Hamer. Welcome to Driven, where every episode I sit down with people who've got drive, persistence and a story behind how they got there. This week, Tony Sheedy, a bloke who scribbled an idea on a napkin at Bathurst with a motorsport god, which turned into a national filtration partnership with the V8 supercars. We talk Ryco Filters, army leadership and the kind of persistence that most people tap out of. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Driven. This is the podcast about people who cannot switch off. I'm Will Hamer, your host, and today I'm sitting with someone whose name you might not know, but if you've watched a V8 supercar do a lap in this country in the last few years, you've probably seen inadvertently his work in some capacity or a bit of branding here and there. Welcome to Tony Sheedy. Sheeds, I'm going to give you a bit of a bio rundown. You're a former Australian Army tank driver. Not driver. Were you a driver?
In the gunner.
In the gunner. Bang, bang. Then head of product, Logikar, Petroject, back in the Wild West days of EFI cast parts in Australia, the aftermarket space. That's obviously where you and I met originally. We'll go to that. But then obviously moving into, I feel like there was business in between, but eventually Ryco and GUD, which is obviously a very big brand in the automotive space. GM of sales, where you architected the Tickford partnership back in 2021, roughly, yep. And a brand in your own words that that Ryco had never played in this space before, but obviously Ryco was an official filtration partner of Supercars, Tickford, Team 18, Grove Racing, Motorsport Australia, the Shannon Speed Series and Australian Rally Championship. It's there and about. It is a big business. It's one of the most innovative companies 2022, won some awards, second in the country and fourth top 10 in a row for the business. The Gen 3 control filter program is a big thing we're going to get into, and for those of you that don't know, we will explain. Obviously engineered to double or triple supercars engine life. Triple, yep. Which is amazing, from sort of 4,000 up to 10,000 Ks, which is mind-blowing considering the pressures those engines are under, which you championed. And obviously I wanted to sit down with Sheedy because I think he's got a awesome story that I guess probably has never really been told, but I'm a massive fan of motorsport. Obviously Driven is based around my passion, which is cars, and this is a Driven RPM episode. And so we'll go through all that in a little bit more detail. But first, I wanted to just sort of tell a little bit about yourself and go back to probably the cool stuff. Let's go back to tanks. So you started and you said you were a gunner in the old Leopard tanks, the Australian Army. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, so always wanted to be a soldier my whole life. Come from a family where pretty much everyone from every generation has been there. And I joined up when I was about halfway through year 12, knowing that I'd go in November. So it was pretty hard to keep motivated that last 6 months of school, but finished year 12 and then was on the bus to Kapuka in November of 92. And just came home and told mum and dad I've joined the army and I'm heading off. And of course there was, I guess it was greeted with surprise, and but they still drove me to the bus stop. So awesome. So it was okay. But that was probably my first thing that's led me through the rest of life, is that I won't necessarily ask permission. I'll seek forgiveness and move forward. So, fast forward, always wanted to get into either infantry or tanks, and someone that I knew said a second-class ride's better than a first-class walk, so put yourself down for Armoured Corps or Mech Inf. And so I put myself down for Armoured Corps, got in and was, first Armoured Regiment for the next couple of years. So Unreal. That was good fun. Yeah, just like sending a lot of ordnance down range and cool stuff, good friends.
I've got a quick question for you. So Leopard 2?
Leopard 1.
Leopard 1?
Yep.
Okay, so Google that, guys. It's a pretty amazing tank. German, obviously. What's the face you make when you shoot the main?
Oh, wow.
Okay. Is it like
Yeah.
Don't look at the camera.
Try not to get the smile off my face. But you're concentrating because your view of the world is through your oculars, and if you take your eye away from looking outside, which is clear blue sky, to looking inside the tank, it's purely just smoke, cordite, and dark. So I always was trying to not breathe while I was looking outside, because once you realise what you're breathing in, it's pretty nasty. But yeah, as far as the face goes, if you hit the target, it's a pretty satisfied look on my face.
Yeah, and teamwork, right?
Constant teamwork.
Yeah. How many people? What's the crew?
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So driver, gunner,
loader, and commander.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I could talk about tanks all day. We could burn some time here, but your goal in the army, especially driving tanks, when did it finish, and sort of what was your how did it end up in the end?
So it was actually a scheme called Ready Reserve Scheme, which is we were the first intake in. So that was 3 months, like full time for the first 12 months, which you could extend. So I ended up doing about 18 months full time, and then 6 months of having a career break, and then did the reserve component for the next 18 months. So at that stage, I'd got my apprenticeship as well, and moving away, the regiment moved to Robinson Barracks in Darwin, and that it all pretty much got a little bit too hard to keep going. So after 4 years, I didn't renew.
And so that's when your automotive sort of flair, that sort of started a little bit.
Yeah. So the Leopards got me interested in the auto side. And it's probably one of those decisions that I regret in certain respects not staying there. Like one of my mates from in there retired from regular service last year. Wow. So I thought, that could have been me. Yeah. But especially once the Australian Army got Abrams, I was like, how do I get back in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And then sort of just to finish on the Army sort of period, you obviously were a gunner, so you weren't leading people at that point, but did you learn from the Army obviously some pretty important lessons, right? And what sort of sticks with you still to this day?
The teamwork aspect, as you mentioned, but safety. So that was probably the first time I was really exposed to safety within a workplace, and also processes and SOPs before it was cool. And so that really showed me the importance of good processes, safety, and then that instills and develops teams.
Awesome. And then obviously being so regimented that you would have felt all that firsthand and been involved in that. That would still be a part of who and how you lead today, right?
Like discipline, I've always been a very self-disciplined person, but I realise that everyone's different, so I try not to push that onto everyone. But 30-something years later, I still use the line at work: if you're at the meeting on time, you're 5 minutes late, which can be come across a little. How do I put it?
Like you're an
regimented,
arsehole.
like you're a jerk.
You can swear on this podcast.
But my team know from where it comes from, and I don't wheel it out.
Yeah, I think to fast forward a little bit, your next move and where I met you was. How do you sort of best explain this? There's a little world of aftermarket EFI parts in Australia that I never knew existed. That I met you at a business called Logikar, which was formerly Petroject to Victoria.
Yep.
And effectively, I mean, in your best words, how would you explain what Logikar was?
It was, so the only bit we've forgotten is that we were both mechanics. So we were fully qualified, and I think it's fair to say neither of us liked getting hands too dirty.
True.
And engine management was really starting to drop into the aftermarket. So prior to that, it was all carburation. And a lot of the old school guys at work, they didn't want to get involved with engine management. And the attitude was pretty much like, oh, this is new, I don't want anything to do with it. Whereas I saw it as an opportunity to learn something that was new and it wasn't going away. And so the businesses started to develop, and Petroject was started by a couple of guys in New South Wales, and then they sold franchises around Australia. And the businesses, all they did was engine management. So they would source engine management. There was limited SKUs, limited brands available. There was no aftermarket. It was all genuine product at that stage that you would get through back channels like Bosch, for example.
And let's sort of explain to people that might not know really what engine management is and how that affects everyone. So engine management being sensors. So obviously, you're moving away from the mechanical operation of an engine to more the electronic sensor operation and computers effectively, right? And then, how does that affect people? Well, they go get their car fixed. Someone was driving an Astra or a Commodore back in the day and it stopped working, or it was either a fuel pump or a coil pack or a sensor in some capacity. The availability of the replacement of that part was generally through the OEM, the manufacturer, right? Yep. And so Logikar and Petroject was there to offer mechanics direct, right? These parts cheaper, alternatives, aftermarket. That's the space, right?
Yeah, and open the channel. So engine management just mean like your car's way more reliable, its fuel economy's better, and you get in and it starts, and there's it just made life simpler for the driver. As well. But yeah, the actual business, there was very low competition, so Petroject definitely had its first mover advantage, and they grew the range. But again, they were hamstrung because it was purely buying genuine products, putting them in a Petroject box, and then distributing through limited channels in Victoria, for example. So there was 2 branches at the start.
And I guess to go back to your career and how you've sort of grown from certain aspects of it, I think at that time, I was involved with product with you, right? So you were sort of head of product at Logikar, and again, we had the team of sort of sales and sort of phone sales and lots of stuff. But we sort of met. Well, you tell me how we met, maybe.
Yeah. So we had vans on the road to try and increase those distribution channels, and we'd open up a branch in Tullamarine as well at that stage. So you were brought on board as a driver, I believe, and one of our other mates, Jared Hurst, came along at the same time. Within the first 6 months, I said to Richard Moody, who was the founder at the time, was the founder, that, hey, like, this guy's probably too good to be out on the road, and we need help here, and we need to help with sourcing. So what part of the backstory that maybe you don't even know is that Petroject was a franchise, and the agreement wasn't as tight as what one would have hoped. And like all families fight, but it got really bad. And the New South Wales branch effectively opened up in competition to Victoria. There was a whole lot of back and forth beforehand, and so I'll put a lot of allegedlys in here because I don't want to get sued. But effectively what it meant was our phone number was taken off us and given to someone else. But even worse than that was that we lost all of our sourcing because we were buying everything off other Petroject branches. And so at the time, it was the worst thing that could have happened to us. But I look back as it was the best thing that happened to us because it was cutting the apron strings and making us go on our own. And that's when we started sourcing from overseas directly rather than buying off local distributors.
And to make this sort of relevant, because this is obviously pretty like closed circuit, small industry, for people that, I guess why I want to talk about this story is that people who are either in logistics or supply chain or even just leadership roles, like the result after a couple of years, and certainly when I came in, like what you'd built at that point was from the ground up, like it was nothing, right? And I think the product lines and the things we used to do, and like you mentioned, the Vegas runs, the parallel importing from other it was for me, it was obviously like, I don't know, no idea you were the expert, right? You knew, and I was just sort of helping you in that space. But what did you learn? Like, how did you figure out like, how did you figure out how to import stuff and how, like, you were working out exchange rates and then market rates, and like, how did you figure out all of that space?
So first of all, Richard was really good at letting me go.
Yep.
And you're sinking or swimming at this stage. Like we were in pretty dire straits. We had no supply and had no phone number. So we're trying to get our customers back, as well as making sure we've got product on the shelf. So we literally just had to learn. Like we knew about Apex show and SEMA show. We knew about the Automechanica Frankfurt shows, and that's where we went. At this stage, China hadn't kicked off at all. There was some OEs in there, but there was no aftermarket, so there's no reason really to go to China at this stage. It's not what it is today. And so it was literally talking to these guys either over the phone or via email through dial-up. But we hopped on planes and went and saw them and sold our story and managed to get supply. So we had challenges because we were no one. We had challenges because we were small, and the Yanks especially didn't need us. And it was purely just through persistence and personality that said, just give us a shot. And so, yeah, we had some Americans that said, and Europeans, that we're not going to supply you because we've got existing customers, and that was PAT, which has now been bought by Bapcor. But we were still able to get direct accounts.
So for the motor enthusiasts and sort of rev heads listening to this, to understand Australia in the worldwide market, like obviously it has its place as a car manufacturer market, but then the spare parts market. How do you explain Australia and how it sits in the real world?
So if I put it in a filters perspective, Australia's yearly demand for oil filters is what the Yanks go through in a week.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah. So we are pretty insignificant.
Yeah. And so to put that into reframe that, you're going to Vegas to talk to somebody about importing some cam sensors and coil packs for Astras and Opel and da-da-da. And they're kind of just like, we'll have a meeting, maybe not. Yeah. So the impact and the importance of those meetings, what did you learn? Like, how do you woo people? How do you get them on side?
The way I approach it is I'll try and help someone out without expecting anything back to build the rapport and the trust. But it's also being persistent. So with certain American brands, like they wouldn't talk to us. So it was going onto the stands and effectively ambushing them on the stands, just waiting, just saying, can I get 5 minutes of your time? And just coming back and not coming back. And then it may even be we come back the following year and do the same thing. And probably Standard Motor Products was an example of that, where they didn't want to know us, wouldn't talk to us. And in the third year, we managed to get a conversation and start to move forward. So that was 2011. Yeah. It's just persistence beats resistance. You know, like people I've found will come up to barriers and want to know why those people don't want to talk to them. And it could be that they see that as that person's problem, but really it's a you problem. And you've got to just be persistent. If you've got the belief that what you're doing is the best course of action, and you can see forward. If you've got a strategic direction and you say that's my strategy and I'm not going to deviate until I realise it's totally the wrong direction, then it makes it easier because you've got clarity on what you want to achieve, and so being persistent becomes easier. Yeah.
And I think, I came in with you to Vegas. We saw that show, and the SEMA is one of the biggest aftermarket parts show in the world, right? Vegas, 4 levels, 5 levels. It was ridiculous. And the cut through and like the objective of just the conversation, right? And to put this into perspective, I think even, which we'll go through in a minute, but the rest of your career, the persistence for you, and is something that I hope people take away from this conversation is like you said, you're not asking for nothing. It is, in the hope that you're going to give something back, and that persistence is in numbers you will win, right? And I have to say, I've learned a lot of that from you, and I remember anything we do at work, you know, I think it's just a numbers game. Like, it's not overwhelming. Cold call, all that sort of stuff can be quite overwhelming. But if you do it in numbers, you have faith and comfort in knowing that you will get a result, right? That persistence is key. When did you realise, like, product? It's pretty random, right? You're going from shooting tanks to, you know, to product and all the rest of it. When did you realise that you were good at it and you started to see through the matrix of supply chains, you know, and things, understanding budgets, understanding importing stock? Like, how old were you when you started at Logikar?
About 25, 26.
So you've gone from importing stuff, trying to figure out how much you need, working out exchange rates, local pricing.
Yep.
Like, when and how did you figure that out?
Again, you've got no choice. Necessity is the mother of invention, and we had really good help. So there was the customs agents that we used were really good and were really open with the help they gave us, and we were small fry to those guys. Like, we're bringing in LCLs, whereas they're normally bringing in 40-foot containers. So we never imported enough to fill a 20-foot container from the US or Europe. It was all just pallet quantities or a couple of pallets at best. So we were really lucky and fortunate that we had good people helping us. But again, it was about building the rapport and the relationships. If you treat people well, I find that it generally comes back to you.
When those boxes with SMG written on the side land and they've got dust and they've got, you know, US tape and stickers all over them, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I was
remember
wrapped,
the first one?
because it was years in the making.
Yeah.
And so even though from us it was, or from the overall scheme of things, I look at getting excited about one pallet of goods, like, look back now, but at the time it was a massive victory, and something I'm still pretty proud of. I'd forgotten about it, actually. So yeah.
And the other way, when you see, and again to try and connect the audience to this, when you go out to, you quite often do this too, you go out to a mechanic shop and check if something fit, right? Or if this part came in, worked, and you're seeing a customer you've never met, you don't know, they don't know who you are, but they're driving away in a part that you've imported parallel from America, and it's working and it's fixed someone's problem, and they can go to work, or they can go, take their dad to hospital or do whatever, right? How does that make you feel?
It's job satisfaction, and I've always been passionate about it, and that passion's never left me. I've just been able to channel it better as I've gotten older. But it's, I understand place in order. Like, we're not curing cancer. No one's going to die from what we're doing, but it's, to me, it's really rewarding in being in product, because you get to touch every aspect of the business. You have got to use your collaboration skills. You can't force anyone to do anything from another department, for example. But that it gives you really good groundings to be business managers and leaders in the future. Yeah.
Pivoting a little bit, moving forward. Actually, before we do that, I think your leadership style is unique. I think you build allies quicker than you realise, and I'm not just kissing your ass here, but I think your leadership style helped me grow into who I am today. And I think at Logikar, when I was there sort of under you, and we were scribbling out catalogues and rewriting other people's catalogues with our own part names and all that sort of stuff. I think it was interesting. But you said to me something once, and I know you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
What was it?
You're unemployable. You need to go and be your own boss.
Yeah.
I was actually telling Marty about it this morning.
Yeah, it's but that's the leadership style that you have. Like, you're not possessive. You don't see if there's potential for people to move on or do other things. Like, you encourage it, right? That's still something you work with today?
Yeah, and like, that sounds harsh, right? But there's only you and one other person that I've really said that to, and it wasn't in a public forum, but it was like, you're effectively, what I was saying is you're wasting your time working for someone. The frustrations that you've got in the role you're in are because you're better than it, and you need to go and take those steps to be your own boss. And it's something I can see like in yourself, and there's another guy at Ryco that I've mentioned it to as well. But I would never do that. Like, I don't have the kahunas to put everything on the line and go and start my own business. I'm much more comfortable being in the background or being in that corporate blanket. And there's no security no matter where you go, but you do the best you can, and hopefully you've built that reputation that if something does happen, a restructure and you're outed, you can get another job pretty quickly. But when you're your own boss, yeah, that's something that
I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You've definitely, I think, proven that you can take risks and you can deliver. And I don't know if that's that different to starting a business, but
it's other people's money.
Yeah, so fair enough. Going forward, I want to get into this and let our audience know and sort of know the story behind this, because this is one of the real reasons I wanted to get you on here to talk about V8 supercars, right? Yep. Ryco, let's go forward. Ryco Filters, briefly, give us a rundown. Who's Ryco? What does it do?
Yeah, so Ryco's been around since 1936, making filters. It's the premium filtration brand in the market, and it's now more an innovative company than it once was. I think it did miss one thing in 2024. I think it was we did win the Most Innovative Company Award.
There you go.
In AFR, I think manufacturing, and so we've got a really strong engineering team. We've got laboratories in Melbourne, and we want to know what else we can do besides an oil filter for a car. Like it's about looking forward, looking for niches, and taking risks that previously the company wasn't happy to take.
And when we're talking filtration, we're talking air filters, we're talking engine, we're talking oil filters, and we're talking fuel filters, right?
Yep.
As the basic.
Cabin,
yep.
And in commercial vehicles, there's, as you're aware, a shitload more.
Yep.
It's about keeping that brand strong and keeping it fresh, keeping it relevant, so that we're purely just caretakers for a short period of time in Ryco's history. And my goal's always been to leave it in a better condition than I got it. And so hopefully that'll ring true.
And so again, with filters, to sort of dumb it down, so to speak, like it's the last line of defense for an engine's sort of engine life, right? It's shielding it from the dirt and the fuel, the dust that you're sucking in, and of course the oil that the naughties in the oil and all that sort of stuff, right? That's basically what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the engine filters are to prolong the life of the engine. Air filters your first line of defence against all the nasties that come in, and people think it's engines wearing like the metal. It's actually not. It's the silica dust that's coming in through your air filter that is causing most of the wear in an engine, and once it starts to wear, it wears faster. And in the oil filters, the goalie, the oil filter's picking up whatever the air filter has let through. We'll always let a certain amount through because otherwise no air would get into the engine. But there are different levels of quality of the filter, and especially in Australia with the age of the geology, we've got really, really fine dust that you don't see anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
And so Ryco's never been in motorsport before, sort of.
It's
in a
never
big
officially been in motorsport. It's been on engines. It's been in the back of the car in the fuel tanks, like on Group A's, etc.
Sort of club spec.
But
sort of
it was like if you're using Ryco on there, it's just at your own risk, so to speak. We've never officially been part of it, and that was because of what I call the corporate ass covering or not wanting to take a risk where there could be an engine claim for a $160,000 engine due to the filter being blamed. So there was the risk averse.
So tell me about, obviously moving to V8 supercars and Ryco's partnership with supercars. Anyone that watches, Cam Waters hammer around in his monster car, which I'm very fond of. You've seen Ryco all over it, obviously, and same with the Castrol car as well. And as a partner for supercars as well, Ryco is prominent branding and everything, which I know you're very proud of. How did that happen? How did it start? And I guess there's a few sort of angles I want to take on this, but did it start with your entry, was it with Tickford? Is that originally, or
No,
how did that happen?
So it actually was earlier. There was a small sponsorship with Erebus Motorsport, and so the previous CEO, Guy Nichols, arranged that, and Barry Ryan at Erebus was using Ryco products on the Walkinshaw supplied engines at the time, and that was pre-me joining Ryco. But it was very small, and it was just one team effectively using an oil filter. Fast forward a few years, and we moved from Erebus to Tickford. When we moved to Tickford, we wanted them to use our Ryco filters, at least on the engines. It was either BMC or K&N air filters that all the teams were using, and we didn't have a replacement at all for that. But we did have fuel and we did have oil. So we wanted Tickford to use our oil filters. They were doing their own engine program at the time, and they were using K&N on those engines. And at this stage, it had Cam come, I think, second in the championship for like 2 years in a row. And race teams fear change, and these guys did not want to move.
Yeah.
Alistair Hampton, who's the general manager of engineering at Ryco and innovation and quality, I better give him a full title. He in the background was looking at what everyone was doing as far as race filters going. So in the short term, we tested what they'd been using on the rig in Melbourne, got the results and said, hey, we can prove to you that your 40 micron filter, we can replace it with a 20 micron. So the smaller micron means the more finer the particle is that the oil filter's catching. And the K&N and BMC filters are designed to allow more particulate through because they're not as restrictive as a traditional air filter. So you're trading off high flow for engine life. We spoke to the commercial guys and at Tickford, and we're like, and Richard Marks, who you obviously know, and said, hey, we want to get the crew chief and the engineers down because we want to prove to you to put Ryco on when you've had no dramas with your previous filter supplier. And so arranged time at Ryco to bring them through the lab. And honestly, when the commercial guy came through, it was like he was dragging the kids to grandma's or an aunt that they hate seeing. Like, honestly, it was like, this is going to be a tough sell. Like, yeah. I don't want to be here. I'm only here because this commercial guy wants more of your cash and we don't want to lose it, but like, we're just here. And so we took them through the lab, and Alistair walked them through everything that we do, our testing, our capabilities, what the Ryco Z160 would look like against the K&N. And by the time those guys left, it was like, okay, we're going to pull everything off, we're going to add everything on. And then I said, can you do this, this, and this for us? And it was like, okay, so they actually had filtration issues that they needed solved, but they didn't realise that there was people in Australia that could actually solve those filtration type challenges for them. So that was how we then got our products onto Tickford engines.
Right. And so you got to think, just to reframe this, a top two, top three team,
yep.
right, in the V8 supercars, own engine programs, so building their own engines, right? They're not sourcing from another team.
Yep.
They're using. So I'm guessing a K&N and like filtration wasn't you have to use. It's open, but you can decide,
it's open.
Right?
You could use whatever you want.
K&N being a US brand, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, for them to pick up and change filters, I mean, I'm sure obviously filtration's got this is what I think is really interesting. Filtration's got a need for the team, right? But it's not like they weren't looking for longevity for the engine, right? They were they were probably stripping them down, rebuilding them.
3,500, 4,000.
Right. So what's that? Every 2 or 3 races, something like that, right?
Yeah,
so you think about Formula One and all that sort of stuff, like the budgets are just like whatever. We want to win, yeah?
Yep.
So for them to come into your lab and you're trying to sell them things like engine longevity and solving some problems that they don't have or need or want, right? I think you're undercooking that a little bit. That's a big thing to like get over and to convince a team that almost doesn't want to, like filtration isn't a big thing for them. Like they can just buy their way out of it or change it or do whatever, right? So you've gone and if I'm correctly saying this, you've sort of shown them, yeah, like you said, you can do it in Australia, but this new conversation about engine life and sustainability at the time, like talk me through that. It was
pre-COVID as well. So it was 2 years before Gen 3 started. And as I said, race teams, they fear change. And if something's been working, why change it? And they're quite happy to start Bathurst with 600 horsepower and finish Bathurst with 596. And that's just a parasitic loss over the course of that race. And so they would just rebuild the engines, use the material. And these engines were like $180K or $160, I think, $1,000. Like they weren't cheap. And when you walk into Tickford's engine shop and there's like 15 of them lined up, it's like, wow, there's so much cash here. Or so much investment, I should say. That's probably not the good term. And we realised then that there's opportunities, or Alistair realised, I shouldn't say it was me, Alistair realised there's opportunities here. So we ordered in every single competitor performance filter on the market, and we then moved to develop what is a Ryco Syntec. So we evolved Syntec from being a premium oil filter that would give you longevity because it's a 20 micron filter, not a 40 micron filter, and some other little bits and pieces in there as well that would help, to actually building the best racing oil filter on the market. And so we took what everyone else did really well and what everyone else did poorly, and made sure that we could make something that was going to be an awesome product. So we didn't have necessarily Gen 3 in mind. We had a commercial vision in mind that we could sell the best racing filter in Australia until others catch on, of course.
And so for in an ASX listed company, right, or GED, how involved were you in that whole overall decision? And did you have to sell that to someone up the chain to make that work? So
it was on the Syntec filters. It was an engineering product improvement that we did, and it was more of a skunkworks sort of mission in that respect. It wasn't necessarily to get us to Gen 3, as I mentioned, but what we realised once we started to put the pre-production samples on the rig, we were like, holy crap, like these things are really performing really, really well. And so I actually said to Al, like, we could not just be on Tickford. We should go and push these to like engine builders. And at the time, you had Mostec engines, and they were building DJR's championship winning engines, and you had KRE building 888 plus a few other teams. We're at Bathurst, so the first Bathurst post COVID, which was a February race, and I made a connection with a guy in the Tickford corporate suite, and like there was no one there, right? So it sounds fancy, but there's like 5 people in this suite, like, and it costs you nothing to get in. So, and so I said, he asked, what do you do at Ryco? And I told him what we did, and I said, I'm really interested. I want to try and reach out to Kenny Mack at KRE to let him know what we're doing with the filters. I think he'd be interested. And he says, I'm mates with Kenny Mack. Hang on. And he pulled his phone out and texted him and said, Kenny, I've got someone from Ryco here. He'd like 5 minutes of your time. And Kenny came back and goes, well, as it so happens, I've been wanting to talk to someone from Ryco, but I didn't want to go through customer service. So he came up and met, and we're sitting out on the balcony at above the pits at Bathurst, and it's Kenny Mack and me, and I'd never met Kenny before, and I knew of him, but I didn't really know of him, what his reputation was really, really like. And I'm sitting there and I've got a napkin and I'm drawing I'm trying to remember all of the engineering improvements that Alistair's told me we've done to the Z160, and drawing those out on a napkin to show Kenny what we've done. And as I'm doing my presentation to Kenny, James Courtney and Cam Waters come out, and it was like I expected Kenny to kind of be like the fanboy that I was to these two drivers, when it was the opposite. I was like, holy fuck, this guy's a god. Like within pit lane, this guy is like, if we can, and I knew at that time, if we could convince Kenny that we had a really good product, I think we could then convince everyone else, because we found this with other industries as well. People are happy to use your product as long as you're not the first. They're not the first. If they're the first person to use it, there's risk to be taken. If they feel they get a level of comfort if they know that other people have used your product first. Kenny's like, yep, cool, we'll give you a shot. So we sent some pre-production samples up to KRE, and he put them on one of the 888 engines that they were dynoing, and spun the previous brand off, spun ours on, and it made oil pressure on the dyno graphs. It made it earlier and slightly higher. And Kenny's comment was we could actually run a smaller gear that would save us 3 horsepower. And you go, big deal, right? 3 horsepower, who gives a shit? But we're talking a $15 oil filter that gives you a power gain of 3 horsepower. And in that business, that's pretty huge.
That's championship winning.
So Ken, or KRE, Kenny and his crew were developing the Gen 3 engine for Chevrolet, and Mostec was developing it for Ford. We asked Kenny what are Ford using. Kenny said you need to talk to Bobby at Mostec and see what they're up to. And so it was that building the relationship with Kenny, asking the questions, and then getting the opportunity, and then opening the door to that opportunity. So then cold call Mostec engines, which is then became Herod engines down the track. And Bobby, who didn't know us from a bar of soap, but I just name dropped Kenny Mack and said he's told us to reach out to you. We've just developed a filter for the what we hope will be suitable for Gen 3. And at this stage, there'd be no conversations with supercars, but filters are open. The teams could use whatever they want. Gen 3, the teams were going to be able to use whatever they want. Kenny, KRE, as the engine builder, could have put on any brand of filter that he saw fit to. And what our hope was that he'd choose Ryco. And so talking to Mostec about the Mustang engine, so they were building the Coyote, and I sent him the specs of a Z928, which is the standard Mustang filter that Alistair had given the same what we now call supercar treatment, but it made it high flow, really strong filter, like massive burst strength, and sent him the data and rang him to say, how'd you go? And Bobby's comment was, mate, you've saved my ass. He goes, this is, I had space for 10 centimetres, and everything I looked up online, it's as far as the requirements for a filter meant the filter had to be 20 centimetres long, for example. And up until that point, I'm like, man, I'm always a day late and a buck short, and we've actually got in early. So we can actually, so Ford was actually first to say, yeah, we're going to use the Z928 ST because the samples that they got worked flawlessly and perfectly for what they wanted to do. So then, and we're still 2 years out from Gen 3 at this stage, right? So we've got
Gen 3 being the next version.
Gen 3 being the
vehicle,
the next version of supercars, which was designed to be much cheaper and more environmentally friendly because you're not rebuilding engines every 4,000 Ks. Mostec and KRE started to supply some of their engines with Syntex, as well as the new versions going on all the Tickford engines. So we started to get we had 3 engine builders using Ryco Syntec along with their other brands to customer engines and their own engines. It kind of opened a door because those engine guys told supercars, and particularly Craig Hasted, who was the managing the engine program for Gen 3, who was working under Adrian Burgess as the technical director at the time.
So you've gone from a dream, an idea, Ryco's not in motorsport in an official capacity. You've gone to a luck conversation, a sliding door moment, to a napkin with one of the gods that you had no idea. Maybe that was a good thing because you probably wouldn't have been as honest.
Yeah, I think if I'd have known his reputation, I probably would have myself and
completely
and just been too nervous. But
and then you found a race team, 2 or 3 more horsepower to something that they probably dismissed as being basically just a disposable element of the engine, right? At a perfect time where, the next generation of engines are being developed and the idea is sustainability and the end result, obviously, to get to the end here, to go, these engines have gone again from 4,000 to 10,000 Ks capacity, right? Which is like kind of, you've really helped them do that in a way. And
Ryco has, right?
Ryco has, obviously, and then sort of I'm assuming because of the success there, V8 or Supercars Australia has put you on the official filtration partner. Would that be right?
There was because we're moving from pure race engines, $160,000 engines, to supercars wanting, I think at first they said $60,000 per engine, and then they moved it to 80. But how they were doing that is they were using LSs and they were using Coyotes, and both engine developers are like, how the hell are we going to get the life out of these things? Because what was causing engine wear wasn't the oil filters they were using now that was contributing to the life. It was purely because so much particulate matter was being let through the air filters because race teams felt that they needed high flow. So a oil-filled media that was being used it's designed. It captures the dirt or a lot of particulate purely because of the oil. But we had teams running these filters with no oil because they felt it gave them a competitive advantage. We also had teams running no air filters at all. And so these cars were just vacuuming up the track and destroying the engines over time, which is why you see that parasitic loss just with a race like Bathurst. And so what between Alistair and Kenny Mack were trying to work out was the air filter. And so we then cold called Craig Hasted. And when I say cold call, like it was 6 months.
Who's Craig?
So Craig he was in charge of the engine program and still is for supercars. Mm-hmm. So he reports to now Tim Edwards, who's the ex-boss of Tickford, but at the time Adrian Burgess. So they're really busy. They've got a whole new car program that they're trying to get up and running. And so we eventually got a meeting with them and we showed them options for air filters. And Alistair showed them 3 different choices of air filters and they said, all right, let's have a go at this. So they set a meeting up with the development teams, which was 888 and DJR, and Alistair pitched the air filter to those 2 guys. And we're in, several of their engineering team, and we're in the meeting, and I can see, because this is the air filter we designed. It started life as a Actros truck air filter with a nano-type media in it that is flame retardant and waterproof and like awesome media. It's going to stop everything getting through. And I'm in this meeting, I'm looking at them, and I can tell the engineers, and they're thinking, this thing's going to turn to toilet paper as soon as it gets wet. I said to the meeting was finished, and they're like, yep, cool, have a go. And so we'll start building some CAD out to get an airbox design and an air filter design. So Alistair already had probably 70% of the product that he wanted to use for the air filter ready to go. And it was just the final, what do the teams want? What do you guys want? And how much space have we got to be able to build this product in? And so I rang Craig after the meeting and I said, hey, are you guys concerned that what Alistair's pitching is so out there compared to what you've been running that you're concerned that in a wet race it's going to turn to toilet paper. And he said, yeah, we are. And I said, okay. And I told Alistair, hey, we need to actually get these guys back on board because they're concerned about what's going to happen. So Alistair did a whole lot of testing on the media with water to make sure it's not going to fall apart, how it performs when it's wet, and we got the teams back on board from that. I feel like I'm talking a bit much now.
No, it's good. It's good. It's gold. I guess the story is exactly what I want, right? It is such a phenomenal story. And I guess from there, to highlight everything that you've said, your emotional intelligence, even to know and pick up something in a meeting to then fix before it's happened, timing, persistence, like all these things are connecting now, right? You start to see that this whole operation was from, is from what you do well, right? And I think, am I right? The final chapter is obviously no brainer for supercars to put you guys on.
Yeah, it took. So we developed the filter, developed the air, and the air was going to be, our dream was for the air to be a control part, and effectively it would have been because the airbox was so customized for that air filter. But if anyone wanted to develop it, they could, and supercars could have used it. So we knew that we wanted to build a moat around it, and we spoke to Craig and said, can we get this as a control part and go for those channels as well? So effectively what happened was 6 months later, so maybe 6 months before Gen 3 was on the track, they said, yeah, this is the air filter, these are the air boxes, and it'll be the control part. And we thought, okay, cool. And probably another part of the story is that Alistair and I were doing this as a skunk works. So we did have a strategy around, one of the pillars was around air filtration, improving air filtration, and this kind of fitted into that strategic pillar. So
it's a passion project.
So
right?
our boss was like, you can do it, but if it impacts your day job, then you're not doing it. And my boss also knows me well, and he was like, if it's motorsport, you're just going to just straight onto that. and so I had to be really mindful that that Ryco at any point could turn this off.
Yeah.
But we knew we were on a good thing. So Alistair and I kept going with it, made sure that it stayed in the skunk works. And then they were doing the first round of testing, and we knew Adrian Burgess was going to be up there. By this stage, KRE had said they're going to use the Z160 Syntec, and Mostec was using the Z928, or Herod Performance Engines using the Z928. So we had the oil filters locked in with the engine builders. We had the air filters locked in with the teams or the development teams, and we're like, okay, there's fuel as well. So when our objective was, Alistair and I are going to go to Winton, and we're going to have a meeting, an unofficial meeting with Adrian Burgess to try and lock ourselves in officially as a control part across oil, air, and fuel, which prior to that point had never been done. So they'd never had that as control parts. That was always open. And we met with Adrian, and when I say meet with Adrian, we're standing in the car park behind race control and saying, hey, you've heard about it. Yeah, you're pretty happy with it. Yeah, everyone seems to really like what's happening with it. And I just said, okay, cool. What we'd like, Adrian, is could we be the control part for these three? And he said, yeah, you can, because from what I've heard, no one's looking at anything else. If the engines run another brand of filter, they're not going to perform the same. The engine builders have tweaked their cars due to the parameters of the Ryco filter, and so therefore you can have air and oil as control parts. I said, well, then can we have fuel as well? And he said, yeah, no worries. But yeah, we're able to be the control part for the Gen 3 series.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal story. Like I love hearing it again. And like for you as obviously you got a team behind you, right? And then there's a couple of things before we sort of finish I want to touch on because of that. So you've obviously you got a team behind you, but you are in, you're one of the chess pieces to make this deal work, and I think that's super important to cover off and to congratulate you on. When that happened, I guess, during a time when all that was, when was this, 22?
Yeah, 22.
Yeah. You were GM of sales, and
Yep.
then you segued across into a separate role. So you went into GM of product.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yep.
And that was sort of as the supercar deal was just done or happening?
It's about a year. So Gen 3 came in, I think, 23.
Yep.
It was actually, time flies, you're right. It's probably when I moved from the sales role to the GM of product.
So a lot of people, I mean, not to knock you, but a lot of people would have looked at that as a sidestep or a backward
it's
step.
emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even last week,
Yeah.
like one of our category managers were talking about work, I guess, and he said I must have been pretty raw at the time. I was like, no, man, like I needed the break. It'd been nearly 5 years in the sales role, and we'd had like some challenges at work with one of my guys committing suicide, which that really knocked me around. And also just from a family point of view, I had my wife doing nursing midwifery, and being able to hop on an aeroplane at 1 day's notice or less, it was just I wasn't going to be able to put in the same commitment that I had, while at the same time it would offer the business an opportunity to bolster the product team, who previously the structure was product sat under marketing, whereas now product sits at its own pillar, and sales and marketing are together.
So your role from sales, you're a salesperson, but you understand the product. This is why you're unique, I think. And to go into a product role, which is, I mean, not disrespecting the product guys, but down in the dungeon, in the lab, in the archive, where you get that dusty desk. It's like you've moved into that role, and then I would say even a product role to unite a team, right? You've got very intellectual, in the numbers, engineering people, and then you've got salespeople that just want to, just want to sell shit, right? Just go for it. And then you've got your management and your top level who are like, you haven't sold enough shit, or it's this department's fault, or it's this department's fault, or they're asking too much of us and we had to roll this out too quick.
Yep.
Your leadership style, incredibly emotionally intelligent. What has been the biggest challenge uniting all? I would say there's more departments, but say product department to salespeople, different animals, right? Yep. How do you bridge that? Like, what do you do? From
a product perspective, what we did was have role clarity. So when I took the product team, as I mentioned, the product team had been under marketing, and we did have a lot kicking off. So the supercars was additional work that the marketing team never had the year before, to be able to leverage the Gen 3 control parts. And the product team was left to their own devices. And what we'd found was over the time, with people leaving, that the business memory of how we did product and brought new products had been lost when those people left. And it wasn't just they may have left, they may have been promoted. Like, so example, Stuart Chandler, who's a current EGM of Ryco, what started life with me as a product manager. We were both product managers together. And so the knowledge was there. It had just been people had been promoted out of that department, or they had left, and so the handover wasn't as robust at what it could have been. So when I first came into product, it was understanding each person of the team and looking at their roles. And what I discovered was the role clarity wasn't there, the purpose wasn't there, or really understood how what each person did contributed to the overall. And just a lack of ownership and a lack of understanding of the power that the product team has within a business. As I mentioned earlier, like when you're in product, you're touching all aspects. You're dealing with finance, you're dealing with sales. And it was about teaching the guys through the process and the role clarity that they they should be wielding way more power than what they had been.
Introverts in the product area a little bit more than sales?
Potentially. And all of them said we're not in sales, and which I call bullshit on. Like, everyone's in sales in some way or another, whether it's convincing the wife for a new car or trying to get a new program along, everyone's in sales. That they had internal customers. You know, they had the sales team, they had the sales support team that relied on them for information, and they may not have had the information, but they should have known where to get it from in terms of the engineers. So to be that conduit for other departments, be it procurement, be it finance, be it engineering, to then feed to the internal customers, which was the Ryco sales team. A few parameters, got them on board, but the fast forward a couple of years, and these the team is much more invested in the job. Their sense of worth and ownership is unreal. Like, they're in some respects maybe created monsters because they want it. They want to keep it close, but it's about sharing their knowledge elsewhere without feeling that if they teach someone how to do a job, then they're at risk. You know, it's not. It's about sharing the knowledge and making sure everyone knows a little bit of everything. And so, like, for me, it's important that the team know that I've got their back. Not having a fear of failure or having a fear that they'll get in trouble for making a decision or making a call is it stops innovation and it stops some really good ideas. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that if they sought forgiveness, not permission, that I had their back. And I told them from the start, if they make a call on 60 to 70% information, they've got my back, because never wait for 100. Like, if the information and the analysis to get to 100% before you make a decision means you'll never do anything. And so my team are confident that I'll have their back. And that's part of that ownership and that feeling like this is my bit of the business that I own and control, and people show up.
And I think you covered a few things I was going to ask you. I think, someone going into a new role where they're apprehensive, how to sort of empower their team, and how do you do that? Like, there's no book you can read to figure that out, right? But like you said, I think giving people confidence. And yeah, I agree with that 60, 70, even 80% rule. I think it was the military sort of equivalent of that.
Well, where I got it from was from Colonel Pat Work from a West Point presentation. And there was a couple of things, and that was fight complexity with simplicity, and never wait for 100%. Always just, if you've got 70%, that's when you move, but never more.
Final question. When Cam Waters comes round on Pitt Straight, Bathurst, you see Ryco sucking up all that air at the front there on the front bar with SRT Logistics, I think, by memory. How does that make you feel?
It's probably one of two legacies that I'll have at Ryco. Yeah. So, yeah, love it. Still do. Like, to this day, it's a buzz. It was a dream, and the persistence required. It took 2 years. And I still remember once we were made control parts, a competitor was cracked the shits about why they weren't asked to be the control part or to be on there. And I spoke to that person and I said, it took us 2 years. We didn't ask. We said, what can we do to help? How can we be part of this? And it was constant. Like, I think Craig Hasted, he said to me, he goes, you know how I've been blanking you for the last 6 months? He said, well, I need this air filter made, and I need it made in the next 2 months. And it's like the way it goes. And so waiting for people to come to you is never the way forward. I think you've got to go there and don't accept no for an answer. There's change your approach, change your pitch. But if you believe in that end vision, then you'll be successful.
Well, I hope some people have learned something today, and if anything, the story is unbelievable. And Sheeds, thanks for coming on Driven, man.
No worries. Thanks for having us, Will.